Wait. Stop. Why are we playing symphony music? It's a beat 'em up, not a Digavania. Play something else. We can play. Oh,
checkpoint.
We're on intro. God damn it. I guess we're on.
Checkpoint.
What else could go wrong today? This is Gourmet Warriors, originally a 1995 Super Famicom release under the name Gourmet Sentai Barayarō, and eventually relaunched worldwide in 2019 courtesy of Pico Interactive, getting a fresh new localized SNES port that comes in the form of not only a reproduction cart once upon a time, but also distributed via a rather simple front-end emulator program ported over the various modern platforms. In today's case, we're playing the PC version of said game that I got on sale off GOG.com, which, if I'm being honest, is probably the best case scenario. Let's check this thing out. So you've got 3 characters to choose from. Bonjour, mademoiselle, puis très bien. It's a French thing, I see. There's a Québécois joke waiting to be made here, but I'll keep it somewhat classy. Anyway, these are your stock big dude who's slow but hits hard, small girl who hits fast but is weak, and the balanced medium-sized dude. Through secret means, you could also play as some of the enemy characters, some of which are fun for a lark, while others are... well, the option's there at least. Anyway, this is a pretty standard side-scrolling beat-em-up where you beat up a bunch of bad guys, move to the right, and so on and so forth. You have a fairly smallish moveset, quick combo, throw move, and a couple special attacks that help in crowd control, somewhat. That's the extent of your combat skills. There's no special weapons to pick up, no rides, no nothing. You do occasionally get an AI-controlled helper clone thing that basically acts as a second player, if they were controlled by a half-wit, and you could beat this helper up and they could also beat you up because this is one of those games, apparently. Of course, there's always the option for proper 2-player gameplay with another human player playing the second player, because that's always fun. In theory, sometimes. Control comprise a punch, kick, and pose button. Yes, a button mapped specifically for posing, and holding down the pose button in conjunction with D-pad directions will do different poses. Because, you know, posing for no reason is part of the lore, I suppose. I should mention this was originally from the same folks who brought you famed parody shooter Choaniki, so there's a humorous element that might tickle a few folks, but that said, control's fine for the most part, it's fairly responsive, hit detection's pretty solid as well with minor hiccups on occasion, and posing, well, it exists. For what purpose, I'm not sure, but if you like this sort of thing, then good on you. I much prefer a baguette to crack over someone's skull. Now, if this was all Gourmet Warriors had to offer, then it'd be slim pickings even by the standards of the stock belt scroller. But the game does try to mix things up by having you collect food items dropped by enemies, some of which heal on the spot and others that do not. But the true purpose of these items is to prepare meals with them. In between stages, you'll use whatever ingredients you've acquired during gameplay to prepare a meal that will restore some sliver of health, since unlike most belt scrollers, health doesn't refill between stages. Some characters prefer some meals over others, and preparing these meals for these specific characters will net an extra boost of health. It's a neat idea on paper, but the execution is a bit undercooked. Hell, you could even say that it's fucking wrong! If cooking a character's favorite meal gave him some kind of additional benefit, a boost of stats, better resistance, some other bonus, I could see this being a fun little thing to do in between, but just to do something that's a normal in-between thing in other stages feels like a gimmick for the sake of having a gimmick to justify the name of the game. It's fairly shallow and actually detracts from the overall experience, and that pretty much sums up my overall feelings on Gourmet Warriors as a whole. It's a pretty shallow game. Once you get past the humorous window dressing and caricatures that the game throws at you, you're left with a typical bare bones and somewhat underwhelming beat-em-up that only gives you a handful of enemy types to brawl with only a small pool of attacks at your disposal, so the combat starts to feel a bit repetitive after a while. Not to mention a bit overbearing at times. The game only gives you one life, and once you die, it's back to the title screen. Not even a game over screen to taunt you on how much you suck at life. There is a continue prompt on the title screen that lets you respawn at the last area you died in, but I don't know, if you didn't want to do the traditional respawning on the spot after defeat like most belt scrollers, fine, it's silly, but whatever. But to have to go through this whole process after each failure is just silly. We're not playing an Igavania here, this is a gimmicky belt scroller. There's no reason for this time-wasting padding. Of course, I'm saying this while playing the PC version, which is just the old SNES ROM running in an emulator program. So you have 3 save state slots to save your progress, button remapping, screen options, that sort of quality of life stuff. That's fine and all, but what this game really needed was a quality of fun update. Gourmet Warriors. Yeah, I'll be blunt, this looks fairly dull. Mind you, there's some creative character designs here and there, as well as some amusing animations, there's some detailed scenery, and the speed's somewhat consistent, but the overall look of the game isn't all that appealing. Lots of drab colors, the environments you battle in are somewhat bland and boring, there's lots of dull colors, the art style is a bit on the rough side of things, and did I mention that the colors were drab and dull. Last I checked, Super Nintendo had a far wider range of on-screen colors to play with, couldn't hurt to brighten some of this stuff up. Even some of the more drab Mega Drive titles look more colorful than this. If you want to call this an artistic choice, be my guest, but artistically speaking, this just doesn't work for me, brother. Neither does the sound, if I'm being honest. Sound effects are stock sounding punch punch kick kick, hard hits, mild explosion stuff. They sound adequate at best, but the musical bits that play throughout the game are also somewhat stock sounding, generic rock techno stuff that serves more as background noise than anything that complements the overall game. Fairly weak sounding and largely forgettable stuff. Overall, Gourmet Warriors is something of an interesting curiosity piece that was once relegated to Japanese soil, eventually brought over to the masses as some lost treasure or exciting new meal, and then you sample it and realize it's not quite as exciting as they say it is. I suppose it's cool to see something like this get exposed to a larger audience and such, but once you get past the surface level zaniness, this is just another stock disposable belt scroller among the many disposable belt scrollers that grace the Super Famicom. It's a perfectly competently executed game that does what it does just fine, and if you want to add another beat 'em up to the pile, you could do worse than Gourmet Warriors, but you can also do much better.